Welcome to Rucks, Walls and Ovals. That's right, it's the fans' favourite rugby podcast back once again with the fans' favourite rugby podcast hosts. That's right, it's me, Dave, joined as ever by Rory, live from France. Rory, say bonjour to the listener.
Bonjour David, bonjour le listener. Ça va?
Ça va, very good, Rory.
Très bon.
Très bon indeed. Yes, so Rory may sound a bit different this week, and that's because he's coming to us across the channel, and obviously that has some sort of interference with audio files and things like that.
Being corrupted by these pesky continentals.
I know, I'm sure you're kind of coming out in rashes and all sorts being over there, but other than that, Rory, how are you?
I'm good. Yes, a couple of long days in a conference, one more to go. But other than that, all well. I've had the soul that is catching up on Prem games in my spare time and making sure I'm fully prepared for this week's podcast. But so pleased to have a bit of Prem Rugby back after those dreadful internationals, after that just only brilliantly exciting Six Nations. Just good to see a bit of proper club rugby back in action.
Oh, there's something pure, there's something amazing about the domestic English rugby league. It's the best league in the world.
Sure is.
Well, Fab, let's get straight into it, Rory, because we've been talking Six Nations for the last 5, 6, 7 weeks, and I just want to talk Prem again. And we made the conscious decision a couple of weeks ago to not dig into the big news that came in around Prem Rugby, which was the announcement around the restructuring of the structure of the league, getting rid of promotion relegation, something we spoke about several times, and kind of opening the door massively for this expansion model. And there's a few other little nuances to that announcement that I thought really interesting. Everyone seems really quite positive about it. Are we, the Positive Pod, on board with this being a big positive thing? And what do we think that means for the immediate and, let's say, short to medium term future for our league?
I'm actually positive about this one. I think it's better to have a literal franchise model than this kind of de facto model we've had for some years where no team could realistically get promoted. It's better to have a proper model that you can plan in advance. You actually have the literal structure there so that investment comes in and it knows what it's investing into, with long-term or medium to long-term goals around expansion, which, I think we've spoken a little bit about this in the past. I want to look at this as the start, not the future. And what I mean by that is, we're starting with a 10-team franchise Prem, okay? We all look across the pond, across the channel with envy at what the French league system looks like, with effectively 3 professional leagues and opportunities for more. We're not there, and we weren't getting there with the kind of organic trajectory that Prem Rugby have been on. Where I see this going, and from the noises that are coming out from admittedly the peak around this announcement, they kind of echo the things that we've talked about, what we want to see. We do want to see an expanded Prem, be that 12, 14, 16 teams, whatever that looks like, 2 conferences. But also they're talking about the potential for a 2-tier franchise system, so Prem Champ. Now, who's to say, if with a fair wind behind you, all things go in the right direction, popularity in rugby exploding in the future, why does that not become a 3-tier franchise system? Why not? What's to stop this structure actually establishing a fully professional ecosystem of rugby that goes through several leagues? Because we weren't getting there the way we were going. I actually see this as rugby taking a grown-up, sensible decision to cut a cord with the past and put something in place that's, if not future-proofed, it's future-aligned to actually. And I realise I'm talking like I've been in a conference, lots of business people. So
You really do.
So you have to forgive me, listeners. I'm in that mode at the moment. But there's a potential to move this structure in a direction that actually builds something more akin to what the French leagues have at the moment. So I'm all here for it.
Yeah, it's great. It's really great to see this cohesion, this really dynamic cooperation,
synergy. Yeah. They got around the table, they thrashed it out, chucked some ideas up the old flagpole, saw which way the wind was blowing, and just forged a path ahead.
Absolutely. No, but in reality, but I think that some of the other aspects of this, I think, really go hand in hand with this around the future proofing, about the requirement for any team to be at Prem level to have a link or a direct link to a PWR team. I think that's a very smart move. The fact that Champ Rugby and Champ Clubs are part of this, are on board with this, is a big tick in the box, because for years they were definitely a bit of the forgotten part of they were an afterthought, and the fact they're part of it is, I think that shows that there's been some common sense found, which is really good. And I'm also quite optimistic. Yes, we're not going to have these relegation battles and things like that, but we haven't had those for 5-6 years, and arguably the Prem has become a better product over those last 5-6 years, so why do we assume that relegation all of a sudden will make it better than it already is? And I think the prospect, I think Simon Massey-Taylor was talking about it before the Bath game this weekend. They're really looking at how they do the expansions and how they select those sides in a way that sets those teams up for success. And they're geographically done in a very smart way. And it's being done in a way where it's serving fan bases, so we're not overpopulating certain areas and forgetting others. So I think there's lots of good sound, good noise, and things that addressing problems of the past, maybe, which is where we fall into that future proofing. And I think it also leads into this competition starting to look awfully investable, Rory. Awfully investable.
Look, crowds are up, viewing figures are up. The product is, as you say, as good as it's ever been in terms of what's actually happening on the pitch. I just see this as a genuine opportunity for English rugby to accelerate, and to, the opportunity to see some big names come back into the league. Obviously, London Irish are already making a lot of noise on social media. You can tell they've got a plan. Obviously, Worcester are back in the Champ. Wasps have a plan to build a ground in Sevenoaks, I think it is, or near Sevenoaks, which is obviously a massive opportunity in a big rugby area.
Yeah, I found it interesting that Simon Massey-Taylor directly pointed out there's a huge number of rugby fans in the southeast, and there's not a rugby club within a 90-minute drive. Kind of says we want Wasps to be a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's lots of different things. There's a huge. If you're not from the area, you wouldn't necessarily have noticed this. That there's a massive infrastructure project going at the moment to create a tunnel between Essex and Kent, slightly more towards the coast than the QE2 bridge, which is, that's currently would be a massive problem for Essex rugby fans to go and watch a team in Kent. This infrastructure gets finished, say, more or less around the same time potentially as a stadium gets built and a team gets established there. You've then got the opportunity to get fans from southeast London, East London, Essex, Kent, maybe a bit further beyond, and actually build a club with a massive fan base. That is a huge development. There's a lot of rugby in that area. There's a huge amount of rugby in that area. And, the fact that you have to go to Twickenham to see Quins, or to the arse end of North London to see Saracens, a club that's barely got transport links, it's a big miss. So actually having someone there is huge. But then, more widely, obviously, we've talked a lot about having a club in Yorkshire, having clubs in the likes of Coventry, maybe Birmingham, maybe more in the northwest around Liverpool, that kind of area.
Yeah,
the opportunities are massive there.
Yeah, and I think there's a huge gap in the market as well in the southwest, because there's just not enough teams in the southwest, I think, at the moment.
I agree.
But that's all to look forward to. But I think it's just 2030 is the purported first expansion for 2 teams, so that is enough time for a lot to happen. So I don't think we're in a position to predict who those 2 teams will be in any shape or form. I think there could be some real surprises. And I think the interesting thing is we're starting to see things like further down the leagues as well. So I think I saw today that Chinner, I think it's where Nick Easter's coaching and doing some really good stuff there. Yeah. Like they've announced that they're going to be building a new 5,000-seat stadium. So maybe clubs that are maybe a bit smaller but maybe have like some wealthy fans and things like that, they're thinking, oh, maybe there's an opportunity here that we can start turning this rugby club into something for the future. So it'll be interesting to see how if there is a ripple effect down to grassroots at all. Obviously, way too early to tell. But I am in the positive camp, not just because this is a positive pod, but because I think it is generally the right move at the right time for the Prem. And to all those creators out there who are fans of the URC teams who seem to be knocking the Prem for getting rid of relegation stuff, just remember what league the teams you're supporting are in, because the URC, last time I checked, doesn't have promotion and relegation. No. So, yeah, I think that's quite good. I think kind of tangentially to that, the news almost seems coincidentally or almost certainly linked that we have the fourth richest man in the UK now, and owner of a rugby club, or half rugby club, in Dyson. And to put that into perspective, his wealth is 2.5 Red Bulls. So he's a very wealthy man.
He certainly is. He's obviously from Bath. He's
a lifelong fan.
He's a lifelong fan. He's a genuine Bath supporter. He does go a lot. But I think it's really indicative that Bruce Craig needed someone else to come in and support that wage bill, isn't it?
Well, exactly. Well, apparently he's just wiping the floor, clearing the debts. I'm guessing. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if the Bath County Council now has a fresh set of Dyson hand dryers in their offices. I'm guessing there's going to be quite a hefty amount of Dyson presence in the new stadium development, because I'm guessing he's realised there's quite a lot of money to be made there in the commercial aspect of that. So it's not cynical. It's probably a very smart business move from him, but him buying 50% of that rugby club now buys him into that stadium project, which could turn into a very lucrative retail investment on his behalf as well. And obviously Bruce Craig, we've spoke about in the past that he was carrying the liability of all that debt for that club single-handedly and could have walked away. And at that time, we thought that was a thing to be worried about if you're a Bath fan. Don't need to worry no more, because it's pocket change to Dyson.
No, that is, I think that's a really, really fair point. You know, Bath Rugby are now financially more secure than almost anyone in the league at this point.
They're almost more secure than most Premier League football clubs at this point. So, yeah, if you're a Bath fan, pop those corks and drink that champagne, because you're probably riding the top of that table for a few generations now until...
Like Bath fans weren't doing that anyway.
Yeah, let's face it. That's just your standard Sunday lunch in Bath,
That's a Tuesday.
That's a Tuesday in Bath. No, but yeah, not jealous at all. Not jealous at all.
No.
But I also think it's interesting. I wonder whether we're going to start seeing some power plays, because Red Bull, obviously big owners. Sales, talk about their owners kind of coming into a lot of money. Bath now having a lot of money. Bristol, like we've got
some extra are for sale at the moment.
Yeah, interesting to see what happens going forward. Whether more investors do come in, and investors with deep pockets. What it means for some of the more smartly run clubs, modest clubs, let's say, like your Leicesters, your Northamptons, your Gloucesters.
Yes. We I don't like the chances for Gloucester to attract the world's most glamorous brands, if I'm honest, given our current sponsors are the likes of Big Doug, Compede, Speedy Skips. I'm not sure if Spotify
Howden's is a big corporation. 1 second, Rory, my doorbell's just gone, as is customary.
Oh, so another fresh pasta delivery. It's ridiculous, honestly. A vat of caviar.
It was a parcel that I received for a neighbour earlier today. Nothing fancy, unfortunately, this week. But yeah, maybe Howden's will come in for Gloucester, or
maybe,
or something really agricultural. I don't know. Clarkson's Club.
Ibina are just down the road.
There we go. But yeah, I think so. That's some of the big things that have been going on in the Prem whilst the Six Nations have been going on. Obviously, there's been a few transfers and stuff. If you follow the channel, you're probably mostly up to date with what's been going on in that space. But I think for now, Rory, let's get into this weekend's action, because we've been yearning for some Prem Rugby. We've got some Prem Rugby to talk about, and we've got some games to talk it through. So let's go straight into the Friday night kickoff, and Bath up against Saracens, which on paper, a very tasty matchup. Reigning champions against past, former, multiple champs. And, I thought it might have been quite a close game. What were your thoughts about this game, Rory, upon watching it?
Honestly, didn't think Saracens were that bad. I genuinely thought they played pretty well for a lot of the game. Manful at times. The first half in particular, I would say, up until Arundel's interception just before half time, pretty even. I thought. I thought they came out of the blocks really well. He scored in the first minute. Tobias Elliott, almost the forgotten man of Saracens this year after his good last year as the kind of breakthrough star in the back three, obviously with the likes of Noah Kalori and Jack Bracken coming through. Rather sort of peripheral this year, but back with a bang. Actually played very, very well throughout the whole game, I thought.
Really good.
But scores really well after, I think, Tom Willis keeps the ball alive in contact. McFarlane, I think, charged Ben Spencer down. Willis gathers the ball, keeps it alive, and they find Elliott down wide after a really nice decoy line from Gonzalez. At that point, that was game on. It's game on. They were then, Saracens were just D'ing up really, really well. Ajomo was very prominent for Bath, but Saracens really didn't look too stressed. They were kicking very well. Farrell and Daly, I thought, kicked extremely well, found a lot of space. And then Bath scored off first phase off a scrum. Lawrence barrels through some defence, wins, then first, and then, I don't know, the game just sort of flipped really, really quickly. Finn Russell gets a 50-22, Barbary carries really strongly, Bayliss then slips at 2 tackles and powers over. Really, really good footwork from Bayliss, who had almost a perfect game, apart from one dreadful pass to Tom de Glanville to put him in the corner. He just throws it over his head into touch.
Yeah. It now makes sense why he's not a back. Now makes sense why he's a forward, not a back, even though he's quick enough to be a back. He's got the hands of a forward.
He's a real athlete, but that was dreadful skills. But the game just seemed to just really flip. Sarri's discipline really started letting them down. Barbary scores in 25 minutes after they give away a penalty, 5-metre line out, peel off the maul, and Barbary just sort of powers over. The rest a bit of momentum. Tobias Elliott again, about half an hour in, just before the half-hour mark. Tom Willis puts Theo Dan in for a really nice break. Tompkins makes another bust, and then Owen Farrell with a really good over-the-top pass to put Tobias Elliott in. And after half an hour, both teams had 100% try-scoring efficiency in the red zone.
Yeah.
Outrageous, really. After that point, 4 tries off 4 entrances between the two of them. It was amazing. And then, 5 tries, I should say. 5. Off 5 entrances. And then it's still quite even for the rest of the half, for the last sort of 10 minutes or so. Saracens start attacking really well towards the end of the half, and Arundel reads an Owen Farrell pass extremely well. And once he's gone, he's gone.
Just no catching him.
Uncatchable. At that point, it's 31-15 at half time. A late Russell penalty to extend the scoreline a little bit. And contest is done. Saracens don't score another point for the rest of the game, and Bath score loads more points. I mean, it's Saracens just seem to fall apart. I mean, Ben Spencer scores off. It's a loose ball. There's a good kick and chase, clearing up the field. There's a loose ball. I think Owen Farrell spills it basically at the breakdown. Ben Spencer picks it up and runs into the corner. They send the Bath bombs on. Tuipulotu scores almost immediately afterwards, peeling off a maul after they win a scrum penalty. Just absolutely demolishes Max Malins. And up to that point, the Sarri scrum had been the better of the two. But the Bath bombs came on. Tom Statoy, obviously prominent. Kepa Tuipulotu, and Vic for the 3 minutes he was on before Beno Urbano had to come back on.
It was a big 3 minutes, though.
It was a big 3 minutes. He actually did very well in like 3 minutes, but he's off immediately. But the game shows that Max Malins then knocked on a crossfield over the try line, which he really should have gathered. Someone with his skill set. Theo Dan gets a yellow card for cynically killing the ball, and then Arundel scores. It's breathless play. I mean, I'm breathless talking about it. It was so much ball in play time. I thought Max Ajomo and Ollie Lawrence were really, really good. But it was weird, Saracens actually had more phases in Bath's 22 than Bath had in theirs. Bath were just ruthlessly efficient, absolutely ruthlessly efficient. and score 2 tries in the last 10 minutes just to wind things up with Guy Pepper
and Van der Linde.
Tom Willis on one leg gets skinned by Finn Russell, and Arundel feeds it inside to Lawrence, who gives Pepper the tap in.
Yeah.
And then Van der Linden nicks it off the back of a ruck after Saracens. I think Simpson makes the break. And the Saracens' defence by that point is just absolutely shagged. Can't catch him, and he runs it in. And it's 62-15, and you go, how the hell did that happen?
Yeah,
that's points on Saracens.
It was not what I was expecting. And when I was looking at the stats, it isn't what the stats would suggest the scoreline would be. No. Say Saracens had an awful lot of the ball, but it is just that ruthless efficiency of Bath. And probably a little bit profligate from Saracens. Probably very kind to say.
In the end,
in the second
half,
half,
the first half an hour, they've been brilliant. But in the second half, they were really profligate. We actually probably should just give the props to Bath's defence, which was monstrous.
Well, they kept Tom Willis, who is, let's face it, Saracens' main man, pretty quiet most of the night. He obviously still had a few barnstorming moments, but not to the same extent he normally does. I think it made me think back to kind of some of the stuff I was saying at the start of the season. When you look at the Saracens lineup, sometimes, certainly in the back line, I not necessarily worry, but when they're not on song, you can see why sometimes they struggle to create things. Because I think they've got some real workhorses in the likes of Farrell and Tompkins. I think Sinti's a little bit, not wasted at 13, but I always thought he was a better winger than a centre. Tobias Elliott had a great game, let's face it. I'm not going to deny that. Shagan barely had the ball the entire game.
He barely had the ball. I mean, Shagan, I think, has been really good for them this season. He's been a real shining light for them, actually. Carries so well. I take your point. I feel it's more style than individuals. I mean, you could maybe make the case that they could do with a bit more Stardust in the centres. But there's still a pragmatism to the way Saracens play, which, when they were good a few years ago, was undeniable. But they lack that little bit of something on top that turns a pragmatic side into a really good side, which is basically what Bath have. I mean, by and large, Bath are very pragmatic.
Oh yeah,
but then you still have.
If you look up pragmatic in the dictionary, it's a Bath crest.
Yeah, but then you still have Finn Russell, who can just produce the sublime, as and when they need it. Yeah. And they've got other players as well. Not denying the skills of Max Ajoma, Wally Lawrence, Santi Carreras. There's great players across the backline, across the whole team for Bath, but their style is ruthlessly pragmatic, as they showed in this game in particular. But what they've really done is taken the kind of what Saracens were great at, but with that ability to turn on the Stardust when it needs to. And Saracens, I think, without the likes of an Alex Good, someone like that who can just pull something a little bit special out, a Chris Ashton who could just create a finish out of nowhere. Who was the winger they got from Dave Strettle?
Oh, Dave Strettle, yeah.
Dave Strettle, those kinds of players who have the ability to break a game up with their raw athleticism or just ability to jink and go. Feels like at the moment they're still. I think they're in a holding pattern until some of those players that I think they have in the youth system who could do that mature.
Yeah. And let's not forget, they've got Thomas Williams next year as well.
Yes, delighted for them.
Look, he certainly adds a bit of Stardust.
Yeah, well, good for them. Great, brilliant. But I think as the likes of a Noah Kaloris got the Bracken brothers, come through. There's is it Ollie Hartley, the centre?
Yeah.
Those guys kind of mature into being top level players, I think you'll see a bit more of the old style Saracens. But at the moment, they're a bit workmanlike. They're great players in the pack, in particular: Gonzalez, McFarland, Willis, obviously, Bernal, Maratoge when he's playing and on song, Theo Dan when he's on it, Reece Carre.
Yeah.
But I think they're lacking a bit of the unknown in the back line at the moment, which is I feel that's what's kind of separating them from the best teams.
Yeah, and that might be why they're now kind of a mid-table team rather than top of the table team.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think they are in a holding pattern for this crop that's coming through, who I think is particularly exciting if you are a Saracens fan, because I think they are going to be a good crop, and I think you've got another golden generation coming through like you did 15 years ago or so. So not a lot to be too concerned about if a Saracens fan, but I suppose a worry you may have is the fact that Bath were very good, and they're not looking like they're going to be getting any worse anytime soon. And they are capable of putting 62 points on most teams, it seems now. And that's when they're not even playing that good of rugby. I'd say that they were good. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, you know,
they were good, but they weren't scintillating. They were just
so ruthless. Fair play to them, putting 62 points on the Saracens side. That on other days would have beaten other teams, I think. So yeah, ominous, and it makes you wonder what sort of work's been going on at Bath's lovely training ground during the Six Nations, because they've put a few things together, put to bed those few shaky games they had before the Six Nations. Maybe we're gonna see
the best of them.
See the best of them in the second half of the season, which, you know, is fun for everyone. But yeah, as we said, the game ended 62-15 to Bath. Just a demolition. 5 points in the bag, and at that point, put them top of the table. Now let's go to Saturday, Rory. And we'll start off with a game that I know you were present for, I believe.
Certainly was.
You were at the Stoop to observe Harlequins versus Gloucester. Two of the most inconsistent teams this season, I think it's fair to say.
Let's call it what it is. The two of the most average teams this season. Probably the two most average. So yes, I did go to this one. Strange atmosphere at the Stoop. Not a sellout, which is very unusual for the Stoop. I mean, not even really close to a sellout. A really muted atmosphere.
Interesting.
You know, it was a bit strange. I have to say. You know, I'm not a Quins fan by any stretch of the imagination. But
no,
you know, I will give them their dues that actually they do put on a decent show at the Stoop generally. But it wasn't. It wasn't on form this week. I think very emblematic of the two teams that were there, if we're honest, and probably a fairly abject feel amongst the Quins fan base. I mean,
did it feel like a game where there was nothing to play for?
It felt like a game that Quins expected to lose, and Gloss came in confident. You know, really. You know, partly because we had some players back from injury, like Will Joseph, Max Llewellyn, Ben Redshaw was playing. I think, you know, obviously going out eventually to Bath in actually what was quite a good game. So I would say I went there with a reasonable level of confidence. I predicted us to win this, and we did, and we started really well. Jack Clement barreling over after 5 minutes or so. Honestly, but the game really didn't get going. I mean, it didn't really ever get going. If we're being completely frank,
it stayed second gear throughout. Really, I felt.
It did. Quinn's really profligate with the ball. Gave up a lot of opportunities in Gloss's half, either throwing bad lineouts or giving away turnovers. Ben Waghorn scored quite a good try, but if we're honest, crap defence from Gloss on the goal line. Marcus Smith scored a very Marcus Smith style try, just finding the gap on the shoulder.
Yeah.
Ben Redshaw scores a try from some really average handling from Quins and some casual play, pouncing on loose ball that Iskro doesn't kill, and darting in. I think it was Keenan Engerfield picks it up and puts Ben Redshaw in the corner. Charlie Atkinson scores a really good one after Mateus Alemano break. Jack Kenningham powers on over again, quite weak defence from Gloss, and then Arthur Clark powers over for the winner about 8 minutes from time for pick and go, and no right really to finish it. If I'm being honest, he shouldn't have been allowed to place that ball. Quinn's just not with it really.
So it was a story of some pretty abject defence and some not overly scintillating attacking stuff. It was just two teams that, devoid of confidence, going up against each other. I think just the side that came out on top just had a little bit more than the other. I think it's fair to say.
I think that's pretty much it. I mean, you know, it's not one that I would recommend going and watching back. I've done it. It's not worth it really. It's not great. You know, look, I'll take a win at the Stoop any way I can get it. We've got a bad record against Quins. We've got a bad record at the Stoop.
Yeah.
And we've got a bad record this season in general. So this is only our second win. They're both against Quins. But
I'm sure some of your friends are delighted with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Wouldn't be like me to rub it in.
No.
And I saw some encouraging signs from Gloucester. Don't get me wrong. I think there's some encouraging signs. There's been lots of good noises coming at Gloucester. They've obviously got Chris Boyd back in for the first time. Sorry, back in the Prem as technical director. Puts Skivs back on the training paddock. They've got Rob Burgess has come in as basically a general manager to take the kind of admin. If we're being honest, this game just came down to the fact that Quins were a bit more crap than we were, and that was kind of the difference between the two teams. That's I can't say fairer than that.
In a nutshell, yeah. So maybe listener, maybe not one to go running out to rewatch, and we'll just take it from us. Ended 1926 to Gloucester. Gloucester, I'm assuming, happy with that.
Yeah, look, I mean, not happy to see Thomas go off injured so early, or at all, really. I mean,
story of the season for Gloucester.
Yeah, basically. At least Keelan Angerfield's back now. But all in all, yeah, happy to get the win. We've got Villa Park, which I'll be at on Saturday against Leicester, so I'm going along to that one. So, a bit more foreboding, I think, as a fixture. But looking forward to seeing how that goes. And in general, this season, you take a win however you get them.
Yeah, I think so. And from a Harlequins perspective, not sure where the season goes. Obviously, you got Robbie Deans has been announced today coming in.
Yeah,
they've been making a few coaching announcements.
They're trying to right the ship, but this season I think it's now a write-off. I mean, I can't see them getting much further in Europe, and
I think
ultimately
their challenge is to not get caught by the Red Bulls. I think. I think it's a very real
Red Bulls in a minute. If I was Quins, I would not be overly confident about my game against them.
No, and that it feels like a good segue to move into our next game, which was Northampton Saints up against the Red Bulls. And I'm just going to say it from the start off, Rory.
I called it. Yeah, you did. I did not call this. I did not see this coming, and I think there's some question marks about Saints. Obviously, a lot of I think will come down to selection in this game, and I think you've got that caveat that you can barely play.
Yeah,
but I would also say I thought the Red Bulls looked heaps better than they have done for large passes, particularly away from home.
I'd confidently say that Red Bulls were the better team on the day.
I mean, by a stretch, really.
Yeah, I thought Saints' defence was pretty woeful at times.
I think it looked really ropey with the ball in hand. I think really disjointed, really disconnected as a team, which you do not associate with the Saints for some years.
On the edges, I think the Obertoyimbos just tore us to shreds, especially Harrison Obertoyimbo.
Harrison Obertoyimbo, I've not seen him play for a long time. And
where have they kept him away? Because he was really devastating.
Yeah.
Part of me thinks is that Saints scored a try pretty early doors from Archie McParland. And it was so easy to score that try. It's almost like they just switched off. Because they even got to a point where we had Newcastle were down to 13. And we didn't 0-0. Yeah, we didn't score a point up against 13 players. If anything, Newcastle protected the ball and looked better.
Newcastle looked more likely to score. And probably should have, because they kicked to the corner when they should have just kicked for the posts.
Yeah.
They should have won that 3-0. And, Newcastle should be very disappointed not to have sprung a real surprise here, and probably unusually let down a little bit by the boot of Brett Connon. I mean, some real standouts. Leather Barrows is there, both Obertoyimbo brothers. I thought Benitez Cruz.
Yeah, he was dangerous all day.
Phenomenal. Tom Christie as a link man and as a jackal threat, a proper old school 7.
Yeah.
I thought Newcastle were really good value for the win, actually. I thought McGuigan had a really good game. Their set piece held up really well, by and large. Nice little story for Nicky Little coming through
from Howick.
And looking good, actually.
Held up in the scrum.
Really held up in the scrum against West, was it?
Yes, it would have been West.
He was playing against.
Yeah.
I think if Red Bulls can take that kind of intensity into their home games, they'll pick up more than one scalp towards the end of the season. But Saints look like a team that needed their internationals back. Let's be frank. Really to avoid equality in this one.
Yeah, I think so, and I think they were surprised by the intensity that Newcastle came and played with. I think that there was a lot of bruised and battered bodies. Not George Furbank's face.
I mean, a hell of a shiner on him. I mean, did you see Arnold's teeth?
Yes. I'd rather have Furbank's cut than Arnold's teeth.
Properly gruesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's rugby. That's rugby. Good spirits afterwards, and I'm sure Furbank is wishing for a game of rugby where he doesn't need paramedics to look after him at some point.
Fair play to Furbank. He's tough and he really puts it about, but he does just cop an absolute fucking skinful every time he plays, doesn't he?
Every time he plays, but he puts his body on the line, and like what Morky want. And I do think it was probably Furbank, Callum Chick. I think those two are probably solely the reason why Saints were able to scrape this one. Maybe a bit of Langdon as well. I thought he looked good coming off the bench.
I thought Langdon looked good when he came on. He looked like he had the bit between his teeth. But I mean, look, there were no tries between the 22nd and the 54th minute in this game. It's poor. And Saints were really contriving not to score at times. I see Langdon then Geeksel got a good line out ball and finishes it off well. But yeah, I mean, this was not a great. No. It was a great game in terms of the excitement of seeing Newcastle in it and thinking they might get an upset. But objectively, not a good game again. I don't think either of our teams are involved in.
But strangely, both of our teams come away with wins, which
you have to take.
You've got to take. And with Northampton, it'll be interesting next week. Northampton going into the showdown game against Saracens, who historically have always bounced back from big defeats. But I also think Northampton will want a response to that performance as well. And with the internationals coming back, I think it's going to be a tasty one. I'm going to be there at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in hospitality.
No.
Yeah, I know. And I offered
Rubbing
it to you,
shoulders
Rory.
With the great and the good.
I offered it to you, Rory, and you said, no, I'm going to go to the Ed Slater Cup. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that because I think we'll see what Saints are about next week where the internationals are back and will be a better gauge of where they are. I think, like I said last week, Northampton historically are always awful first game back after an international window and have always been a bit shook by Newcastle, both of which ring true after this game. And I said I'm just happy if we come away with 5 points, and somehow we've managed to scrape past with 5 points. And if I was a Newcastle Red Bull fan, I'd be a little bit miffed because there's probably a few refereeing decisions that could have gone, like the James Ram yellow arguably could have been a penalty try. Brett Connon,
that was a poor decision. I think that should have been a penalty try.
Yeah, just another example of some poor discipline from Northampton this season. I think we've had a pretty wretched discipline record this season. And I do think it was definitely wasn't James Ram's best game. I think Pater didn't have the best game on the wing. I don't think he's a winger. But
he's 10 or 15, I think, is he, the way that he's being talked about.
But I think that shows where we were just kind of filling gaps with injuries and stuff, because obviously we didn't have the likes of Hendy, Freeman's being rested and all that sort of stuff. So we'll see where what sort of team we roll out next week. But like you say, let's not dwell on these two games because not a great deal of optimistic stuff to talk about. And sadly, on a similar note, and it's really odd because we were just saying in this first segment of the show what a good the product is. The next game, Exeter versus Sale, I think similar-ish trend, probably a slightly better game, but there's big patches of this game that were a bit uninspired.
Yeah, look, I think as a week as a whole, this was a weekend that suffered with, a mixed bag of selections. Let's be frank. But look, Exeter start really well, score 2 tries in the first 10-12 minutes.
Big Paul Brown-Bampo.
Yeah, Paul Brown-Bampo was
huge
good,
game,
really good. Campbell Riddle as well, really good. Yeah. The feat for his first try, around O'Flaherty, off Ross Vincent's second assist.
How does a 6'5" guy move like that?
As a 6'5" guy, I couldn't tell you because if I tried, I'd rip an ACL in half. But superb set of feet on it. He's another one that's come out of nowhere a little bit, and he looks like a real prospect. I know he's got a bit of under-20s experience, but
he's quietly one to watch. He's only 21. He's got the build for this modern day style of rugby, which is basically
he's
box
that kind
kicks.
of robot kind of mold, I suppose.
Yeah,
I mean, for the first 20 minutes, Sale couldn't put two past the other.
No.
The first bit of a reasonable attack was on 21, 22 minutes. Van Rijn finally scores. Chiefs giving up quite a few penalties in the build up.
Yeah.
And then Chiefs bounce back. Woodburn scores after a Harvey Skinner break. Ball breaks loose, somehow not called as a knock-on, not quite sure how. Paul Rambo makes some ground and then it gets out to Woodburn to finish it off. Again, nice try, nice finish, but not loads to talk about around it. I mean, Sale really average again. I mean, for the Woodburn try, they give up about 60 plus metres just through their own errors, either penalties or bad kicks or, it just their own worst enemy constantly. I mean, I liked the Dan Dupree try, pushing Exeter off their own ball at the scrum.
Yeah,
time.
that was nice.
That was a nice moment.
But I think that shows that what Sale's problem is at the moment. The same with Van Rijn. Like, their scores only come from like your brute force.
Yeah, there's no subtlety to that team.
No subtlety to that team. And
particularly missing George Ford.
Hugely missing. I thought having Rathy Quirk in, maybe that it would kind of take a little bit of the slack off.
I looked to get the tempo up where he could. Couldn't really make much ground in attack. I think Chiefs marshed him well with the ball in hand. But I thought actually he had one of his better games as a nuts and bolts 9 than he's had for a long time.
Yeah.
But, Rob Dupree is a really good player, but he's not a world-class 10 in the same way that someone like George Ford is. He's a very, very good centre.
Yeah.
But you just don't get quite the same fluency with having him at 10 rather than George Ford. And they didn't exactly, apart from that particular scrum, I wouldn't say they dominated Chiefs up front. It was fairly even, I would say, in terms of the power game.
I think that's why it was so surprising.
Yeah. Honestly, you take the forward power away from Sale, and they're another team similar to Saracen, who just don't have enough stardust, particularly missing someone like George Ford to pull something out of the bag. Other than that, it's not loads to say about this. I mean, both teams left a lot of points out there. Paul Bampo gets a really bad crossfield over to him, which he doesn't field well. He should have made more effort to get to the ball, but it's not a great kick from Harvey Skinner that basically bounces over his head. But both teams would kind of left the points out there. PVV gets a try for a really nice. It's a shadow line from Stephen Viney makes the break off Harvey Skinner, I think.
Yeah.
It's a nice little Harvey Skinner kind of shimmy. So, again, it's a first phase play though. They make the break and Paul Bumper goes through. Just an average game actually, really.
Yeah.
Chiefs come away with 5 points. Keeps their momentum up. They're going really, really well.
So one thing that I did take from this game was I was trying to think: has there been a better pair of signings in the league than Zambanin and Hooper?
No, those are two I did want to talk about. I thought for someone who doesn't look like a monster in terms of as locks go, he's so effective with the ball and he's got a really good skill set. So you never feel like he's going to kill momentum in attack. And then Hooper is just a dog.
Yeah.
Just ruins mauls, ruins rucks, big hits, carries hard, big bloke. I think they're obviously missing Lenny Cattell, who's obviously not really good. I don't think he's likely to feature in the rest of the season. I think he's probably back to Australia before he's fit.
Yeah.
But in those two, they've just upped the general quality level of that pack so much. I think also helps that Daft Jenkins is back into some really good form.
Yeah.
Ross Vincent being back, I think, helps. Adds a bit more zip to the pack.
Yeah.
And Fizzleau's played so well this season in general. But yeah, you're right. Hooper and Zamboni are the two star men for them, I think, in that pack.
Yeah, I think so. I've been trying to scratch my head about which side has made the best signings based on performances this year, and I think Exeter are definitely up there.
You just have to look at the differential in results from last season to this.
Yeah, it couldn't be more night and day, could it? But yeah, I completely agree. This game, 26-14, it ended in the end for Exeter, so it got the bonus point win. Nothing for Sale Sharks. I think this probably puts the nail in the coffin for any hope of a Sale Sharks resurgence for top 4, but you never say never.
You never say never with Sale. They always pick up at the end of the season. But as we sit here today, as a Gloucester fan, I'm looking at them going, they're catchable. They're you know, I don't know how many more wins they're going to get this season. You know, they don't look out of sight. I think, you know, even Quins will be thinking if we can turn things around, we could potentially catch them there. So it's for someone like Alex Sanderson, this will really stick in the craw. But I don't know how many more points Sale are going to get this season unless they really buck this trend quickly. And, you know, I think the current method of doubling down on plan A isn't working.
Yeah. I think you're right. Perhaps they're just another side that's in a holding pattern, waiting for next year. They've made some pretty good signings, but also
not from the chat they were having about their budget flexibility. I don't know that they've necessarily made most out of it.
I think there might be more coming, unless they really were pulling our legs on this whole kind of world class players coming in.
Yeah.
But we'll see. So one more game to go through, Rory. The Sunday game, Leicester Tigers versus Bristol Bears. And I'm going to happily say this was actually a good game of rugby.
This was really good to watch, actually. Helped by Leicester playing... Leicester played in a very Leicester style for most of this game, probably right up until the final score.
Yeah, until the 79th minute,
Yeah, but actually, I don't mind that so much when it's juxtaposed with Bristol playing the way they play, because actually it's nice to see that real clash of styles. Yeah. Bristol basically tried to play it from everywhere from minute one, and Tigers just...
played territory.
But also just absorbed in defence, and actually physical defence, you know, didn't really give up. I mean, how many line breaks did Bristol get in this game? It can't have been too many, realistically.
No. Their defence was so good.
It was solid. It was solid defence. You know, scored 2 very Leicester-like tries through Morrow and Liebenberg, just kind of powering over. I mean, to be fair, the Morrow try comes from Blameyer carrying off a tapped 5-metre penalty. It was extremely Leicester Tigers. I'll give them their flowers on the Liebenberg try, though, turning over Bristol turned over their own line. I think they overthrew it. And actually, Tigers did identify space, played to the wing, and swept upfield. But the finish was very Liebenberg coded. But lots of pretty stuff from Bristol, some pretty looking play, but nothing really effective in terms of carrying on line breaks until that first Fitzharding try. That was the first time they actually looked genuinely dangerous in attack. Ibitoy and Revuvu particularly combining to make ground.
It made me think of a saying I think you used in a previous episode where they're sometimes a little bit like all fart no poo.
Yeah, they were quite all fart no poo for the first half hour, but finally followed through. And Harding, that's a horrible metaphor to start using. Harding kind of picks and powers over to finish it off, but the attack leading up to it was really, really good. And then the momentum just seemed to really switch. Revuvu scored 2 minutes later. They counter-up, and there's really good set of hands. It's Ogray, Bernard Janssen van Rensburg, and Bill Matter all kind of combine to put Revuvu in, who just loves scoring at Saracens. Just finishes so well. He's so good. Points machine on fantasy.
Yeah.
But the momentum just seemed to switch so quickly. You know, I think Tigers sort of finished up with some penalty points to kind of go clear at halftime. It's 17-12 at halftime, I think.
Yeah, they kept Bristol at arm's length, didn't they?
Yeah, but Bristol looked really, really dangerous. And actually, you know, when Harding scores, I know Tigers started with a penalty quite early on in the second half. I think it was 2012. But when Harding scored about 50 odd minutes in, you know, it's quite a anti-Bristol try, sort of a maul and then a pick and go.
Yeah.
But 20 points to 19 at that point. Actually, it really could have gone either way.
Oh yeah, the game was in the balance because it was 2019 for a little while, wasn't it? And
Morrow spilt one over the line after some really good attack.
Yeah, what could have been really try of the season.
Could have been try. I mean, Hasselcolly and Searle looked phenomenal in that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Morrow managed to spill it. But yeah, until Parisi scores on 15 minutes to go, really could have gone either way. And actually, even then, you know, it wasn't all sewn up. You know, it was only a 5-pointer. Morrow again, really prominent. He's really
He's
come out of nowhere. I think from the wider base, but he looks like another superb Argentinian back rower. They just find him. It could have gone either way until Bears give up the penalty. 2 minutes to go, 28-19. So then the game's sewn up.
Yeah.
You're thinking, well, Tigers get 4 points. Bristol come away with nothing. That's a good day for Tigers.
Yeah.
And then in the most un-Leicester-like fashion,
they harnessed their bear-like skills.
Absolutely, 80 minutes in, Theobald Thomas gets a turnover, and you think, great, game over. They're going to kick it off straight away. No, Ollie Chesham makes a sort of a half break, carries through another monstrous game from Chesham, by the way. Freddie Stewart with a lovely kick pass to Searle, who passes it inside to Hamer Webb with a lovely finish. It's a phenomenal try, 82 minutes into a game. At that point, Bears look sort of like they're out on their feet, just been huffing and puffing against this Leicester defence. But to pull out that bit of skill, Freddie Stewart to Billy Searle in particular, at that time, and execute it and finish and come away with 5 points and give up nothing to the team who was your closest kind of challenger for top 4.
Yeah.
I mean,
fair play.
We hate to praise Tigers. I mean, it's our least favourite thing to do.
But you can't help it.
Can't help it. They were great.
Yeah, I think of all the teams this round, I think if I had to pick the team that I didn't want to play next out of any of them, I think Leicester Tigers are the team I would want to avoid more. So even the Bath.
Right. Thanks, mate.
Oh, sorry. Who have you got next? Oh.
Yeah, it's Leicester for the Ed Slater Cup. Cheers, though.
That wasn't deliberate, I promise.
No, it wouldn't be. Wouldn't be from you, would it?
No, I'd never do such a thing. But I think with them, it is a very Leicester-like way they're playing, but there is a bit of, and I think a lot of it coming from Billy Searle. I think the way he plays, it means that they're not quite as one-out runner, very straightforward from a textbook style they were, say, last season. They've got a bit about them now, which
I think this is a theme we're going to keep returning to. I think this theme that we talked about with Saracens and with Sale, I think it's sort of Tigers are kind of that mirror image to it, aren't they? Where they are, they are pragmatic. Tigers are pragmatic. Tigers fans, maybe they won't like hearing us say it, but let's be frank about this. Tigers have and always do play a certain way, but you mix in the likes of Billy Searle, played to the capacity he's playing at the moment. Hassel Collins playing to the capacity, Radwan when he's fit, being in there. It's that extra bit of stardust that just makes such a big difference. And, I think teams are going to have to come to terms with a pragmatic game plan. It is all well and good. Maybe this is something that England themselves are kind of reckoning with at the moment. Pragmatic, structured game plan is all well and good, but you need to have the ability to turn opportunities into gold, and Tigers are doing that better than other teams that play in a similar style, maybe other than Bath. I would hazard so much to say is Tigers are one of the teams that's obviously got one over at Bath this year, and Saints are a very different style of team to these two. They're much more, not style over substance, that would be unkind, but they're much more free-flowing than they are pragmatic, let's say.
Much more attractive to watch. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah. I mean, not this weekend, but yeah. But actually, maybe the Tigers' game plan is the one that can challenge Bath more closely when it comes to the really tense matches. We'll wait to find out. But
well, I think when Northampton beat Bath themselves, that's probably the most pragmatic I'd seen Northampton play.
Yeah.
So it says a lot, really, that maybe there is something in this pragmatism, as long as it does come with something a bit more substance to it. So there is something in that, and maybe that's what Borthwick spent the last Six Nations just really honing in on the pragmatism before he starts getting to work on the substance.
Maybe he's just honing in on something.
Maybe, but yeah. So this game ended 33-19 to Leicester Tigers, giving them a bit of breathing room to, as you say, top 4 competitors Bristol, putting themselves in amongst the pigeons with kind of dancing around those top 2-3 spaces. So yeah, I think they're ones to watch in the run-in for sure. And I think I'll be surprised if they're not in the top 4 when it comes to the end of the season, the way they're going. It feels like they got the wind in their sails. They got the Prem Rugby Cup under their belt with a very convincing win over Exeter. They're playing well. No one cares, but they're playing good rugby. A lot of their good players are in good form. just look at Chesham. And they got some players that are emerging who are looking like the real deal as well. So, yeah, as much as it pains us to say it, things are looking good at the Welford Road. So we'll do some quick predictions for round 12, and then I'll introduce you, Rory, and the listener to a new thing I'm going to do. But predictions-wise, Rory, let's start round 12. It starts Friday night, Newcastle Red Bulls at home to Exeter Chiefs. That's one hell of a journey for the away team.
It's a huge journey. Actually, this is a tough one to pick because Newcastle are better at home. It is, I think, by some distance geographically, the biggest commute a team can make to another team. Exeter are in good form, but Newcastle looked good on Saturday.
Yeah, and Exeter had the Sunday game. Oh, wait, no, they didn't. I take that back.
Yeah, no, they didn't. Do you know what? I think Newcastle might pip them at this one. I think Newcastle could sneak this one. I think it'll be a really tight, tense one. But I'm going to go Newcastle 19, Exeter 17.
I agree with you, Rory. I think we're going to start seeing some results in the second half of the season.
Yeah.
And I think it's this sort of thing. Friday night at Kingston Park, I think it'll be a buzzing atmosphere, and I think there'll be a lot of Newcastle fans there. There probably won't be that many Exeter fans there. And I'm not saying Exeter won't be up for this, but you're going to feel that commute. You're going to feel that in your legs. And the weather, I don't think, is turning around. I think the weather's taken a bit of a turn over here in this country, Rory. You may not have picked up on that in France. And that may favour Newcastle. So, yeah, I'm predicting a slim victory for Newcastle Red Bulls as well. Next game up, the Slater Cup, Gloucester Villa Park against Leicester.
Look, I'm going to be there. I'm really excited to go there. I'm really excited to see a game at Villa Park. You know, I like that we've done this. You know, it's a bit outside our wheelhouse, being we're very much a local team. We don't have a vast diaspora of fans around the country, so you know, it doesn't necessarily play into our strengths to do something like this. It's much more coded to something that Leicester would thrive with in terms of getting big crowds to this. But you know, we're expecting more than 20,000 there, which, you know, as a first big game we've produced, I'm okay with.
Yeah.
We've got some players back. We looked a bit better against Quins, but I've got to be honest with this one. I can't see anything past a Leicester win, and I hate to say it because I really want us to win this one, but I think this could be not a rout, but relatively comfortable from Leicester. I'm thinking something like 32-22.
I was thinking similar ballpark. I don't think Gloucester will let themselves down. I don't think they'll capitulate. I just think Leicester will have a bit too much for Gloucester on the day. And
ultimately, where I've got to find it. And I hate to not predict a Gloucester win, but in an occasion such as this. But yeah, ultimately.
Yeah. And it's an occasion that both sides are able to emotionally get up for, like the Ed Slater Cup. Yeah. So I think they'll both cut. I think it'll be a great game. I think it'll be a really good game. But I do see Leicester coming away with this one, unfortunately. And I agree to that sort of scoreline as well. And then another big game at the Principality, Bristol Bears putting on a Harlem Globetrotter performance up against Harlequins. That's what I'm expecting anyway. Get Bristol Bears players. Get Bristol Bears players into your fantasy teams, people.
Shredded blue. Bristol going to shred them. Absolutely shred them. I'm thinking 43-15.
I think Bristol break 50.
You reckon? 50-pointer?
And I reckon 4 tries between Revuva and Ibatoy.
There's your fantasy picks there.
There's your fantasy picks right there. And I think Quins... So Quins may get 4 tries of their own. I reckon it could be like 50-28 or something like that.
I'd keep Marcus Smith in your team if you got him.
Yeah, because there's one thing when you do play Bristol is they do occasionally give you a bit of space as well. So, yeah, if you've got Marcus Smith, I'd keep him in your team. But, yeah, I think Bristol will have a bit of fun at the Principality. And hopefully, fun will continue at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium whilst I'm eating my lovely sandwiches in my comfy chair. Saracens against the Saints at the Showdown 6.
Prawn Sandwich Brigade.
Whilst I've been watching
Saracens against Northampton.
I'm just going for Dizzy Rascal at the half-time show, Rory, if I'm honest.
Oh, because you're a rascal, Dizzy Rascal. What a rascal, Dizzy Rascal.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm assuming Saints picking their internationals this week and going full more.
I think they will.
I don't know how much of a follower of football you are these days, David, but the home team hasn't been exactly thriving at Tottenham
No,
Hotspur Stadium
very well
recently.
aware. Very well aware.
Ultimately, I think I've got to come away and say that Northampton will win this one. I have a feeling Saracens might try and make it a tight affair, and then Northampton will pull away second half, final quarter, maybe.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking 27-16 to Northampton.
Yeah, I'm certainly expecting Northampton to win. I'm intrigued to see the Saracens lineup because at the end of that game against Bath, like the likes of Willis looked like he was on one leg. Gonzalez went off injured at half time. It looked like they took a lot of injuries in that game.
They took some punishment, yeah.
They took some punishment, and then like Ben Earl. So I'm assuming Ben Earl will be rested in this game, or they're going to rest him in the Champions Cup because he needs to be rested for a game. We might see the likes of George and Atoji come back, but I don't think that's enough to turn around that Saracens team that I saw in that second half against Bath. So I think Northampton will have. They like the big occasion. Pollock will be there, geeing up the crowd, dancing along to Dizzy Rascal. So yeah, I think Saints get the win, and I hope to be enjoying it thoroughly from my comfy seat. And then to round it up, Sale Sharks against Bath.
Well, I can't see past a Bath win here. I'm going to say 40 points to 12.
Yeah, it's hard to see beyond that, really, because Bath don't really have to worry about resting players because they have enough world-class players sitting around in the stands, let alone on the bench. Sale, they may bring George Ford back, but I don't think he'll be able to steer Sale to something magnificent against this Bath side. So, yeah, I agree. I was thinking maybe 30-17. But yeah, I think comfortable for Bath.
Yeah.
A comfortable 5 points for them away from home, which I think we're seeing the cream rising to the top. But we'll see. We'll reconvene next week, Rory, and see how those predictions go. But I just alluded to, final feature. One thing that I'm going to be announcing people on the socials over the next few days is a new thing that I'm going to do. You know me, Rory. I'm a champion for the future of rugby, the future generation. Keep a close tab on kind of academy and age grade rugby. So I thought, I've seen other things do it. I've seen football do it. I see other things in rugby do it. The Ruxmalls and Oval Balls, 20 to watch under 20. So that's what I'm going to be starting.
20,
the 20 under 20. And the trick is, listener/viewer, I'm going to pick one from each team, and then I'm going to leave 20 spots open, and I'm going to put the question out there. Who do you think, under the age of 20, so this isn't under 20, you have to be under the age of 20, who are the ones that you are watching that you think have the minerals to go all the way? And the whole idea is, so we'll keep a track of them. Once they get past 20, and then I'm going to keep an honour roll or kind of some sort of... Not an execution, but they will become the alumni of the RMOB 20 under 20. And they're all going to get given a number. And we're just going to see how their careers progress. Some of them may fizzle away down the national leagues to grassroots and find careers and other things. But I'm hoping basically this is just going to become testament to our talent spotting abilities, Rory.
I like it.
One thing I'm going to give you, Rory, is I'm going to let you pick the Gloucester player. I can let you know who I was going to say, but I was going to let you pick the Gloucester player if you wanted to veto my pick.
Well, under 20. Let me just double check how old Dayan Gwyn is, because I think he might already have reached the 20 mark now.
I don't think he has just yet.
He has. He's now 20 years old as of 2nd of February. In which case,
he would have been up there if he was.
Yeah, I mean, there's Kyo James who's not far off, but I'm going to go with Max Knight in that case.
Over his brother?
Not Max Knight, Will Knight, sorry. Will Knight. Max Knight's the older brother. Max Knight's 22. Will Knight, who is
18.
Just coming up for his 19th birthday in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
Played some games for the first team this year. Looked good in struggling Gloucester teams. Looks like he's definitely got the talent to be at that level. Looked really good for England 20s. I think Will Knight is absolutely going places. I would shout out the likes of Kyo James, Kenny Freeman Price, John O'Baldin, Danny Ite. There's some good players coming through, but I think Will Knight is probably the one to watch for Gloucester.
Will Knight was the one I would have chosen as well. So I'm glad we're agreed on that.
Excellent.
my Saints pick as well, for if you are interested. It'd be really easy for me to go Edo Tadaro. It'd be really easy for me to go James Pater, but I'm going Jack Lewis, the captain of the Northampton Saints School for Boys, who just won the Schools Cup as a state school.
Congratulations, lads.
Congratulations, lads. He, at the age of 17, made his senior rugby debut in the Prem Rugby Cup for Northampton Saints.
Yes, I do know this lad,
Did not look out of place one bit. And the coaches have joked that they need to check his passport because he does not look like a 17-year-old. And if you look at him,
pictures, he's got the thighs of a full-grown adult from Tonga.
So I genuinely think, considering he may have more growing and more filling out to come, he could become an absolute wrecking ball. So for me, he's my Northampton Saint 20 under 20 pick of one to watch.
Right.
But what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the rest of the teams out there on our socials and a post I'm going to do in the week, and then invite people to let me know who they pick. And the rest it won't be one for each team. It'll just be the 10 who I deem the most worth looking out for. But I thought this is a nice little fun thing to do, and
love it.
It's good to be do something a bit different. And then we'll keep tabs on them all. Maybe have virtual graduation ceremonies when they pass the age of 20, and then we have to select someone new to come into the 20, and obviously give that perhaps an option to listeners to vote for who goes in. We'll just see where it goes.
Yeah, I love it.
We're innovative. We like to try new things here. So yeah, but I think that's it for now, Rory. I know you've got some schmoozing to go and do in the hotel lobby. So before you go and do that, do you have any final thoughts for the listener? And on that continental note, we've been Ruxmalls and Overballs. Hope you've enjoyed listening. If you have, make sure to like, follow, subscribe, and send us those messages. And we'll be back again next week with some more rugby poetry. But for now, goodbye.
Le tada.